The American Southwest is a land rich in history and tradition. It has been home to many different native people for centuries. Many of these early cultures were nomadic tribes. These tribes moved often. They followed large herds of animals so they could hunt. In addition to being hunters, they were also gatherers. They added plants they found to their diets. Some plants were wild berries, fruits, and nuts. These tribes were experts on the world around them. They knew when certain plants would be ripe to gather. Over time, some tribes learned how to grow their own food. As a result, some native cultures settled in villages and grew crops. Others preferred to live a nomadic life, moving seasonally in search of new food to gather or hunt. Farming in the American Southwest was far from easy. The arid region is known for its hot, dry weather, with little rainfall. Native cultures such as the Hohokam and the ancestral Pueblo settled near rivers where water was more plentiful. They would use this to water the crops in the fields. Slowly, the earliest natives of the American Southwest began to grow and prosper. The largest groups of the Hohokam and the ancestral Pueblo lived among travel routes. These places were good for long-distance trade. Being close to rivers meant that goods could be moved back and forth by water over long distances. Though early Native Americans did not make roads, they did use well-worn trails. Often these trails lay near the area where buffalo herds gathered. Because they settled their villages near rivers and trails, they were able to set up trading centers. Their location allowed them to trade with other communities, using rivers as roads. They gathered items that they could not find or produce. Some items were food, clothing, or tools. They traveled far away, sometimes hundreds of miles, to trade. This helped them meet their needs. It also allowed them to form strong bonds with neighboring tribes. The Southwest became a thriving center of commerce and culture. About 500 years ago, the arrival of the Spanish explorers brought drastic changes to the lives of the native peoples. Among the greatest of those changes were horses. The Spanish brought horses from Europe. The horses thrived on the plains of Texas. These wild horses became known as mustangs. The tribes of the Southwest, like those living on grassy plains, quickly embraced horses. Horses allowed nomadic tribes to move faster. If they could travel farther distances, this meant they could increase trade and explore more land. For some tribes, like the Comanche, horses would become an important part of their culture. One of the first Spanish explorers to make contact with the native peoples in Texas was Cabeza de Vaca. He had been exploring along the Gulf of Mexico when his ship was sunk in a storm. He was stranded on Galveston Island. The journey back to Spanish lands in Mexico took him several years. During that time, he met many Native American tribes, such as the Homano. At that time, the Homano were a great tribe in Texas. Their land spanned from the Colorado River to the Rio Grande. It was a large area that has led some historians to question whether the Homano were one tribe or several. Regardless, it is clear that the Homano had a strong impact on southwest Texas. The Homano were known far and wide for their skills as traders. They bartered goods with other tribes and with the Spanish. They often traveled many miles to trade. Soon, people all over the Southwest came to the Homano, because they knew the Homano could transport goods for them. In exchange, they gained things that would help their tribe survive. They traded things they liked, like metal tools from the Spanish. They traded for things they just wanted, like glass beads, ocean shells, and stones to add to their clothing. To help protect them on their trips, Homano men had a distinctive look. They often painted horizontal lines on their faces. With this, they were sure to always be recognized. Life in a Homano village was centered around the rivers of South and West Texas. All aspects of Homano life were affected by where they lived. Their homes were called pit houses. Pit houses were built into the ground to keep cool in hot climate. The walls were made from adobe. Adobe is a type of mud brick that is strong and protects well against heat. The Homano ate a diet of crops that grew well in the arid climate. Some crops were corn, beans, and squash. Made from animal hide, their clothes were often sleeveless and lightweight. They traded for shells, beads, and jewels, which they would intricately weave into their clothes. Slowly, the Homano peoples began to move farther to the west and south. This puzzled historians. That part of Texas is hotter, drier, and harder to farm on. The population of Homano people began to decrease. Some experts say it was due to diseases. Others say they became part of other people groups, like the Wichita people. By 1800, they had all but vanished. The last of the Homano are believed to have joined other Pueblo tribes in what is now New Mexico. Today, historians believe the Homano were pushed south and west because of attacks from the expanding Lipan Apache tribe. For many years, the Lipan Apache lived in central Texas. The Lipan Apache did well amongst the green hills and gurgling streams of the hill country. This region gave the Lipan Apache many things they needed for their way of life. Unlike the Homano, who lived in more permanent settlements, the Lipan Apache were nomadic. Like other tribes of the plains, their way of life was built around the buffalo herds. The buffalo gave them food, clothing, and shelter. The tribe showed a deep respect for these animals. They relied upon them to survive. There were some traditions for buffalo hunts. They also used every part of the buffalo, wasting nothing. As the herds moved, they moved. They lived in tents they could move, called teepees. Teepees were perfect for their nomadic way of life because they were crafted from buffalo hides and wooden poles that could be taken apart and packed up quickly when the tribe moved. The crafting and setting up of a teepee was a big event. All people of the tribe took part. The Lipan Apache wore lightweight clothing made of hides. They adorned their clothing with colorful beads and feathers. This made large designs that were both beautiful and symbolic. The moccasins they wore for shoes were soft but sturdy. This was perfect for the rugged land around them. Like many other tribes, the Lipan Apache also traded with other tribes. They gave animal hides, meat, and other goods. In exchange, they gained things they could not make themselves, such as pottery, cloth, or certain types of food. The Lipan Apache lived in groups known as bands. A band was an extended family along with related families who lived and traveled together. At the head of each band was a leader known as a Nantan. The Nantan was chosen for their skill and wisdom. In this way, each band of Lipan Apache had their own culture with distinct traditions. They had unique dances, stories, and rituals. Storytelling was a great tradition that kept the tribe's history, values, and beliefs in place. Their oral history includes tales of nature, bravery, and good behavior. These stories were told and retold around their campfires until each member of the tribe knew them almost by heart. Eventually, the Lipan Apache's way of life began to change. Over time, they too were pushed out by attacks and expansion of another tribe. This time, it was the Comanche. The last of the Lipan Apache joined other tribes scattered across the Southwest in the early 1900s. Many were drawn to other native tribes of Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. The cultures of the Homano and Lipan Apache are still alive today. Places where the Homano once lived, like Big Bend National Park, help us remember and learn about these tribes. For the Homano, ongoing research continues to show more about their history. The descendants of the Lipan Apache still live and work around the American Southwest. The town of Lipan, Texas, serves as a reminder of their legacy.